Good morning, everyone. On behalf of our BioNJ Chair, Dr. Chris Shaver, and our entire board, we hope that you, your colleagues, and your families are staying safe and well. I'd like to thank you for joining us for this special members-only event. And although our annual dinner meeting and innovation celebration, which traditionally takes place this week in February, has been moved to November 18th, when we hope that we'll all be able to be in person again, we felt that it was important to bring our members together for some important updates and to see each other in the meantime. Today's about celebrating you and our industry. And in this unprecedented time, we couldn't be more proud of the incredible work being done by so many of you, delivering life-saving therapies and medicines on behalf of patients around the world. In fact, 40% of all new FDA approvals came from companies with a footprint in New Jersey in 2020. And it was our industry that moved at lightning speed to find treatments to combat COVID-19. More than 600 companies working on 800 programs around the world, and more than 70 of you in New Jersey stepped up. As we know, it was BioNJ member Pfizer that delivered the first vaccine, with additional vaccines on the immediate horizon coming from legendary New Jersey companies and BioNJ members, including J&J, Sanofi, and GSK. Not to mention the scores of smaller companies such as OncoSec also working on a vaccine, Sologenics, Insmed, and BioAgis working on their own contributions to addressing the coronavirus. We saw our research institutions quickly pivot as well, with the first FDA-approved saliva COVID-19 test coming from Rutgers University. Sadly, just over a week ago, we lost the lead developer of the Rutgers RUCDR COVID-19 saliva test, the beloved Dr. Andy Brooks. An industry and academic legend and BioNJ friend, Dr. Brooks's legacy and impact will live on in the groundbreaking work that he did. And I would ask for a moment of silence, please, for our dear friend, Dr. Andy Brooks. Thank you. We have a wonderful agenda planned for the next hour and a half, and we're so happy you're here. We're going to hear presentations on New Jersey's COVID-19 vaccine plan and the New Jersey Economic Recovery Act. We're going to recognize our newly appointed BioNJ chair and board members, and end with an interactive networking session. But first, as always, a shout out to our sponsors who made today's program possible. Thank you all for your generous support. So before we hear from our speakers, please sit back and enjoy a special video that we've prepared for you, 2020 in Review. It was a busy year, as you can see, and although a tough year in so many ways, there were many accomplishments in 2020 to acknowledge and celebrate, as we just saw. Congratulations and thank you to all who contributed in any way possible. And now for our program. We ask that you please keep yourselves muted for this portion of the program and suggest you set your screen to speaker mode in the upper right-hand corner. Please type any questions you have for our speakers in the chat box, and we will get to as many of them as we can. As a reminder, after we hear from today's presenters, we will separate into breakout rooms for networking led by our board members. So now, to give us an update on the state's COVID-19 vaccine plan, please join me in welcoming a longtime wonderful friend, special advisor to New Jersey's Health Commissioner Judith Persicelli, Dr. Meg Fisher. Dr. Fisher, it's so nice to see you again. And given your passion and expertise in vaccines, it's just no wonder that you're at the forefront in fixing the pandemic in New Jersey. And so welcome, and we really look forward to what you have to say.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Let's go ahead with the first slide. So what I'm going to talk to you about today is the rollout of New Jersey's vaccination program. And whenever I start to talk about COVID-19, the first thing I have to do is give this disclaimer. What you hear today is the information as of February 4th at 11:42 a.m. It may be out of date by the time I get done talking, by the end of today, by the end of the week. Things are changing with COVID-19 all the time, and we've learned to try to be nimble and adjust. And the state has also been relatively nimble and adjusting. So some of the things you hear today may be out of date even later this week. So let's start with an overview of New Jersey's vaccine rollout. Can I have the next slide, please? So our goal is to provide equitable access to all who live, work, or are educated in New Jersey. So in order to do this, we really are trying to let people know how to get involved and how to help us. Our goal is to vaccinate at least 70% of the adult population in New Jersey, and we think that we need at least that number to achieve community protection. The current vaccines that we have available, the Pfizer and the Moderna vaccine, as you know, are 94 and 95% effective. So that is really fantastic news. The problem is we don't have enough vaccine. It's not available enough. And further, the uptake has been very uneven. So there's great demand right now for the vaccine, but we're going to see that there's a rather equitable distribution is not yet happening. We want you to help us to build sustainable trust in COVID-19 vaccines, but also in vaccines in general. No one should be suffering from vaccine preventable diseases. We really need to get vaccines where they need to be. Next slide, please. So this is where we are so far. And remember that the very first doses of COVID-19 vaccine came to New Jersey on December 18th. So since December 18th, we have managed to immunize, as of the beginning of this week, 813. We've given out 813,000 doses. And if you look at the dose 1, dose 2, you can see that there's a fair number of people who have actually, over 100,000 people have completed both doses of the vaccine. So that's really an amazing rollout in a relatively short period of time when we talk about giving vaccines to adults who are not always the people who are so supportive of being vaccinated. We have 6 state-supported megasites, and I'll show you in an upcoming slide where they are. We have over 2 million people registered in our state-run vaccine scheduling system. Unfortunately, we don't have 2 million doses of vaccine or 4 million doses of vaccine because remember, it's a 2-dose schedule. We've engaged lots of people. We've opened many vaccination sites, but we're still waiting to get more vaccine. To date, about 1,400 long-term care facilities are getting their vaccines, and this is through a federal partnership with CVS and Walgreens. Next slide, please. So this is the part that I'm not so happy about. If we look at the racial and the ethnic distribution of who's been vaccinated, this is not reflective of our population. So about 60% are white, 6.8% Asian, only 3.9% African American, and only 5.8% Hispanic. So to me, this is a major problem since we know that people of color have been adversely affected by this outbreak. They have more hospitalizations, they have more deaths. We want to see these numbers change. We also want to change that 22.8% where it's unknown or NA. We don't want those numbers. The reason is that in some places the information has not been collected, and sometimes people are less likely to give out their race and ethnicity. But we want them to give us that information because we really want to be sure we have an equitable rollout. It's fairly interesting also that we see that more women than men have been vaccinated. This reflects two things. First of all, the fact that the 1A group, the first group vaccinated, were healthcare workers. And we know healthcare workers are more females than males. And also long-term care people are more female than male. So that really reflects the eligible populations. If we look at the ages that we vaccinated, it looks like we haven't gotten that many over 80. But if you stratify this per the population, we've given to a high number of people in the over 80 group, almost about 20% of those people, not enough, but a high number, and then proportionately lower numbers to the lower ages. Next slide, please. So who can get vaccinated right now? And go ahead to the next slide. So this is the way it's rolled out. So remember, December 18th, first vaccines. Those were for paid or unpaid people working or volunteering in a healthcare setting, and for residents of long-term care facilities and other congregate settings, and the people who take care of them. So that was the 1A group. And then on January 7th, we opened up to frontline first responders, and those are police officers and fire personnel. So firefighters and police officers on the 7th of January. And then on the 14th of January, there was a dramatic increase in the number of people who were eligible for the vaccine. It was opened up to include the people who are at the highest risk of getting severe disease or dying from COVID-19. And these include people with cancer, kidney disease, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, trisomy 21 or Down syndrome, heart problems, those with immunocompromised conditions, obesity, people who are pregnant, sickle cell disease, smoking, and type 2 diabetes. Now, we didn't come up with this list here in New Jersey. This is from the advice of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices. And a note about pregnancy, it is because pregnant people were not included in the studies, it is recommended that pregnant people speak with their obstetricians and their internists about whether or not it would be right for them to get the vaccine. Next slide, please. Well, how are we doing at getting the vaccine out? And you can see there's a big difference across the state. So Cape May and Morris County are doing great. Monmouth County doing very well, but other counties not as much. And we're very concerned about Mercer and Hudson. We would like them to really get this vaccine into people's arms. Next slide, please. So where can you get vaccinated? And go ahead with the next slide. So we have lots of places where you can get vaccinated. These are called, affectionately called PODs. POD stands for points of dispensing. And the points of dispensing sites are a whole variety of different places. So the first places to get vaccine were the acute care hospitals so that we could get healthcare personnel immunized. Also the CVS and Walgreens for our federally supported long-term care facilities program. And then we set up the mega sites. There are 6 mega sites, and I'll show you where they are in a subsequent slide. Chain pharmacies are now getting vaccine. a number of urgent care centers, and federally qualified health centers as a way to make things more equitable, and then local health departments. And you know we have lots and lots of local health departments in New Jersey. So vaccine is going to all of these pods, and when you give the vaccine to them, there are several things they need to be able to do. Register patients, vaccinate them, bill their insurance company or the federal government. There is no cost to a person who's being vaccinated, but we do want to try to recoup some of the costs of vaccinating people. Ensuring vaccine stewardship and cold management. So the vaccine should be going to people who are eligible, and cold chain is essential so that we don't spoil vaccine and we don't waste it. And then every one of the pods has to report who they vaccinated, and they must do that reporting within 24 to 72 hours, actually within 24 to 48 hours. Next slide, please. So these are the sites throughout the state. You can see they're scattered all around. There are some counties that have less sites, but those are also usually counties that have a lower population. And you can see it's a whole variety of different sites, and federally qualified to urgent care to other practices. Next slide, please. So these are the mega sites. Each of the mega sites is associated with a healthcare center for the most part. So Gloucester is associated with Rowan, Burlington County is associated with Virtua, etc. So all of these mega sites, or most of the mega sites, also have their own registration system. So in order to get your vaccination appointment there, except for Gloucester, you need to go through the registration site for the mega center. Next slide, please. So how do you actually make this happen? Well, the first thing we want you to do is register and begin to get educated. So sign up on the New Jersey registration system, so the New Jersey VSS, and you do that online. And if, depending on where you live, you may also be able to get your appointment right from that scheduling system. We also want you, at the same time that you register, that you start to look at the education that's available on the COVID-19 vaccine website. There's a lot of information there about the vaccine, about the emergency use authorization. And when you register, you will be asked certain questions. Those questions are to make sure that you're eligible to be vaccinated. So a lot of people are concerned about giving up their personal health information. This information is not shared with anyone. It is strictly for figuring out who's eligible to get the vaccine and how can we get you registered and scheduled. Now, once you get an appointment, you go and you check in. Please make sure if you get that appointment, there are way more people who want appointments than can get them. Please show up go to your vaccination site and check in at the vaccination site. They will again ask you some screening questions to be sure that you're okay to get vaccinated. If you're acutely ill, if you had COVID disease at that time, then you would not get vaccinated. They will also give you a postcard reminder for your second dose. And at most of the sites, you will actually be able to get that second dose right when you get your first vaccine. So we want everybody to get that second dose scheduled as soon as you get the first dose. The vaccinator will prepare the vaccine and administer it, and they will record the information. And then you're observed. You're observed for a period of 15 to 30 minutes. 15 minutes if you have no history of any kind of allergic or anaphylactic reactions. 30 minutes if you have had severe allergies in the past. And this is just so we can make sure that if you do have a reaction, there are people right immediately available to administer anything you would need. After that observation, then again, you should get either a card that tells you who to call for your second dose, or you'll actually get the appointment for the second dose, and you will get your vaccine record card. Make sure that you get that card when you get the vaccine. Next slide, please. So this vaccine is free of charge to anyone who is eligible to get it. It doesn't mean that there's no cost. We know that there's a lot of cost to setting up these mega sites, to setting up the vaccine centers, and there is some payment. The payment is a pretty low payment. almost $17 for the first dose, a little over $28 for the second dose. Clearly, it won't cover the cost, but it's important that we go ahead and bill for that. Insurance companies will pay for the vaccine. They are not allowed to bill you, and you will not be billed at any of the sites. If people are uninsured, that's fine. They still can get the vaccine. And in this case, the federal government will pay for the administration cost or for the administration fee. Next slide, please. Okay, let's get to how you actually get vaccinated. Next slide. So this is the New Jersey, the vaccine scheduling system. And initially, it really was only a registration system. As we're going along, we're getting better at scheduling people. So for many of the sites, you can be scheduled on the New Jersey VSS. But for other sites, for most of those mega sites that are associated with the health centers, for like Hackensack or RWJ Barnabas Health or Atlantic or Inspira, you need to use their registration system. So yes, you get registered in the New Jersey system, but when you become eligible, you'll get a text saying you're eligible, but you'll also get a list of all the sites that are in your area. And your next job then is to go ahead and make that appointment. If NJVSS can't make you the appointment, then you call one of the sites that is close to you and go ahead and get schedule that appointment. Next slide, please. What is this scheduling system all about? This is really a way for us to capture the information on who's getting the vaccine. We also want to capture information on ethnicity and race. And we want to get people registered and get those second dose appointments out as soon as possible. NJVSS also communicates with the New Jersey Immunization Registry, NJIIS. So that allows that information transfer to be kind of seamless. And as you all know, information transfer is not always easy. Next slide, please. For people who can't use the internet or don't feel comfortable using the internet, we now have a call center up and running. The call center number you can see is 855-568-0545. And there are over 300 people that are answering that line. They speak a variety of different languages. They can answer questions. They can help people get registered in NJVSS, and they can sometimes schedule the appointments. Again, they can't schedule the appointments at all of the areas, but where there's a link, they can help with the scheduling. At the moment, because of limited vaccine supply, that availability of appointments is definitely limited. Next slide, please. So now let's start with finish with stakeholder and public engagement. What would I like you all to do to help us at the Department of Health? Next slide, please. We really want to build public confidence, and we think you can help with that. We've already had lots and lots of stakeholder calls or webinars like this one. We have a multi-pronged public awareness campaign with Princeton Partners. We have the website that's updated literally daily. We have a weekly newsletter called Vax Matters. We've had 17 listening sessions with different populations to try to find out what their attitudes are and how we can encourage them to get vaccinated. And we're surveying people to make sure that their experience at the vaccine sites are good experiences. Next slide. These are some of the information graphics, the infographics that we have that are available on the website. And please download them. Please give them out to anyone you can think of. Get this information out to all of your colleagues. Next slide, please. This is just a larger view of the same. And it gives you the website, covid19.nj.gov/vaccine. Next slide, please. This is Vax Matters. Again, it comes out weekly. You can subscribe to it. It gives you stories on what's happening with the vaccine rollout. And it also gives you some very short videos to use to really encourage people to go ahead and get vaccinated. Next slide. So what are the main things that we want to reinforce? We want people to get tested. We can't stop testing just because we're vaccinated. This testing is very important for anyone who has any symptoms that are suggestive of COVID-19, and it's important if you've been exposed. So if you've been exposed, you should be tested about 5 to 7 days later to identify whether or not you've actually been infected. Take the call. We have contact tracers working throughout the state, and one of the problems they're having is when they call people who have been exposed, they don't always answer the phone. So please encourage people to take that call from contact tracers. Download the COVID Alert NJ. This is an app you get free on your phone, and you give information about your personal information, but it's kept very private. And it will tell you all the information about what's happening in New Jersey, but also it will let you know if you have been in an area and possibly been exposed to COVID-19. Wear a mask. This is really essential, and it doesn't stop after you get the vaccine. The reason it doesn't stop is we don't know whether the vaccine prevents asymptomatic infection. But we know that people who get infected but don't have symptoms can still spread the disease. So you spread it by talking and making those respiratory droplets that go out into the air. If you're wearing a mask, then the respiratory droplets go into your mask and don't get out into the air where they can expose other people. Likewise, if you have a mask on, as you're breathing in, all of those droplets are caught by the mask and they don't get to you. And this protects you not only from COVID-19, but from the flu and from a variety of other viruses and actually bacteria as well. So anything that's spread by that respiratory route. We also want you to wash your hands. We want you to keep that distance, that 6-foot distance. That's about the amount that the droplets can go. We also want you to understand isolation and quarantine. Isolation is for people who have been infected. So if you have the virus in you, we want you to isolate, keep away from everyone for a minimum of 10 days. That 10 days is based on that's the most likely time that you're shedding virus. Quarantine is different. Quarantine is for people who have been in contact and been exposed. So we want them to stay away from everybody else, but the quarantine in New Jersey is still 14 days. In other states and other circumstances, it's 10 days, but for New Jersey, quarantine generally is 14 days. And then register to get the vaccine. Remember, the vaccine's available currently only for people 16 and older if it's Pfizer, and 18 and older if it's Moderna. And next slide, please. So how can you help us? What do we need from you? Please seek knowledge, stay up to date, reach out when you have questions, work with us to build public confidence, engage your members, stay safe, stay healthy, and last slide, please get vaccinated. Thanks. I'm happy to take any questions at this point.
Thank you so much, Dr. Fisher, and thank you for the great work that you're doing at the department. I can only imagine what your life is like these days and that of the commissioner and those around you. We do have a couple of questions. What are you thinking in terms of how long it will take to vaccinate all of New Jersey? I'm sure it's a guessing game, but what are you projecting?
Probably not until summer.
Okay.
And that doesn't include children because so far we don't have the studies that allow us to vaccinate children. But hopefully by summer or fall, we'll get that information and be able to expand the vaccine to younger ages.
Okay. We have some questions on whether or not large employers will be able to become vaccination sites and when they might hear if they are able to.
So as I mentioned, right now we have 290 vaccine sites. We have lots of other people who are very interested in being vaccinators and vaccination sites, but we don't have any vaccine. So there is on the, if you go to the New Jersey Department of Health website, you can ask to be a vaccination site, but I can tell you that for now, it's not going to be soon just because we don't have enough vaccine. As more vaccines or different vaccines get approved under the emergency use authorization, that may change. So next month, month after, that may change drastically. But right now, we have lots of people registered and no vaccine. Not no vaccine, but not enough for the people who want it.
Okay, very good. Probably a similar answer in terms of the industry, they were designated essential workers And will there be guidance for when they might be vaccinated, be able to be vaccinated, and then, the larger industry? And also in terms of the vaccine site, when people are signing up, should they be signing up under medical supplies manufacturing?
So for that part, yes. And remember, don't just sign up at the NJVSS. If there's a site near you that's got a registration system, go ahead and sign up for there as well. As far as when we're going to expand, we expanded in the middle of January, just a short, less than a month away. We really opened it up to an additional 2 to 3 million people, and that requires another 3 to 6 million doses. So I don't know when the next expansion will be. If I have to guess, and I hate to guess, especially when I'm talking to smart people, but my guess is that we probably will open it up further, but I can't tell you which sectors, as we go down the 1B list, I can't tell you which people it'll be opened up to, whether it'll just be the whole group or whether it will be a phased in. I suspect it will be more in the way of a phased in.
Okay, very good. We have some questions on the variants, booster shots toward the winter. Any plans for that? Any consideration in terms of the variants, whether we need to aim for 80% vaccinated? Any thoughts there? And then we'll wrap it up.
We'd love to have 80%. I'd love to have 100% vaccinated. So I think more is better. And for true so-called herd immunity, for really protecting communities against respiratory viruses, it usually is in the 80-ish range that we'd like people to be vaccinated. The variants are a problem. Currently, we believe that the current vaccines work against the variants, but we know that at least for the one variant, they don't work as well. So that's still being studied. In New Jersey, we are beginning to look for those variants much more than we were before. The CDC is looking for the variants across the country. There's 4 or 5 variants in the US, let alone the UK and the South African variant. Moderna is already working on a booster dose against the variant that originated in South Africa. The reason, because that doesn't seem to be as much protected as some of the other variants. I think you will see, depending on which variants kind of take over, you will begin to see movement of your industry to protect us against those variants. So it's going to happen, but at this point, I can't tell you how quickly it'll happen.
Understood. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Fisher, for being with us and, for providing some rays of hope here. So thank you. And please stay safe and stay well yourself.
Thanks. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. So I would just note, we have had some Zoom issues, capacity issues. If you were delayed in joining the call, we sincerely apologize. This session is being recorded, and so we will make it available, and we will make sure we send it out to all of our registrants and our community to follow up. And again, I apologize for any delays. And I know some folks are still joining us as we speak. So we have much more of our program left. As we know, the Garden State has long served as a global hub for innovation in the biopharma industry. In early January, Governor Murphy signed the New Jersey Economic Recovery Act of 2020 to help ensure that the state maintains this status. So here to share details on this game-changing package, please join me in welcoming Chief of Staff for the New Jersey Economic Development Authority, George Santos. George, welcome. And I know George will be joined by his colleague and BioNJ Board Advisor, Kathleen Coviello, Executive Vice President at the EDA. So George, over to you.
Thanks, Debbie. And that was a great presentation from Dr. Fisher. It was very informative. So as you mentioned, the governor signed into law on January 7th, the Economic Recovery Act of 2020. Next slide. And it's a long bill. So, no issues if you guys haven't had a chance to kind of pour over it in detail yet. It kind of goes, it encompasses 4 of the governor's main priorities, investing in people, investing in communities, making New Jersey the state of innovation, and making government work better. And those are kind of values and goals that we've had at the authority for a while and to kind of double down on recently. Next slide, please. So there are several familiar programs and tweaks to existing programs and several new programs. Just really quickly, these are the 8 kind of new programs. Emerge and Aspire are kind of cousins to the previous Economic Opportunity Act programs, GrowNJ, the jobs-based program, and the ERG program, the real estate-based program. Just really quickly, we have a couple of other kind of community-based programs in the bill that we're excited about. It's Main Street Recovery Finance, really for small businesses, brownfield redevelopment, which is exactly what it sounds like, cleaning up contaminated sites and contaminated buildings, historic property reinvestment program for some of our distressed assets, and food desert relief for underserved communities. And I'll talk about some of these other programs a little bit more later on. Next slide. So all of these programs kind of have a focus on job creation or investing in innovation, targeted industries, or targeting, Main Street businesses, especially after the, terrible impact of COVID on our downtowns and main streets. Helping underserved communities, which has, been a theme at EDA and for this administration for quite a while. And then also implementing anti-corruption and oversight reforms. I'm just trying to make sure that things are, run a little bit tighter, and that, the taxpayer is more confident in how we're administering the public funds. Next slide. So some of these reforms include there's now going to be an independent inspector general, kind of not technically in EDA, but monitoring what we do and other economic programs in the state. That'll be appointed by the governor with advice and consent of the Senate. A chief compliance officer within EDA, and that's just kind of formalizing in statute a lot of the initiatives and compliance efforts that we've instituted over the last few years. Caps on the programs. So every program has an annual cap on it and a program-wide cap. That was a really important goal of the administration, just to kind of make sure that we can kind of budget our economic development efforts and have an idea of how much we could be spending going forward. There's some reforms to tax credit sales and transfers. This really kind of some stuff Treasury really wanted to see. More data sharing with, again, Treasury to kind of make things go smoother on the EDA side, which the applicant should experience when we're processing applications, as well as making sure that all of our applicants are kind of good actors, when we, partner with Department of Labor, DEP, Treasury to make sure everyone's kind of up to speed on everything they need to be doing. CEO certification or penalty of perjury was an important point that came out of some of the task force reports for some of our economic development incentives. Prevailing wage, again, kind of strengthening labor requirements and ensuring people get paid for the value of their labor, and community benefits agreements in certain instances for large projects coming into certain communities to make sure that to really have the community benefits from the tax expenditure. Next slide. So these are kind of the 3 large programs that BioNJ members might be most interested in. So Emerge is the replacement to GrowNJ. This is really focused on job creation and kind of attraction from out of state. Material factor is going to be really important here. So we're going to take a really hard look at making sure that the investments the state makes into attracting or growing companies is, actually needed and is going to provide enough of a return. But it's also targeted in geography, but also by industry. There are bonuses for life sciences, information, high tech, clean energy, so on and so forth. You see there, and then the net benefit, as I mentioned, depending on the area of the state, you might the net benefit to the state might have to be 400% of the tax credit award, or as little as 200% in what we're calling the government restricted municipalities, which is Patterson, Trenton, and Atlantic City. The Aspire program is our real estate-based program. So this is if for the commercial side, if a developer wants to build a big commercial project or has a tenant and trying to build a headquarters for them and there's a construction gap, this is geographically targeted. So again, think of New Jersey cities, think transit-oriented development. And we'll look at the project, and depending on the gap, I believe it's up to 45% of construction costs we might be able to cover, again, depending on certain individual characteristics of the project. And then the community anchor development program is really exciting and going to be very complex. This is going to allow the EDA to partner with different anchor institutions. So you can think performing arts centers, cultural institutions, but most importantly, institutions of higher education and research institutions. So if you're looking to partner with some higher education institution in the state to maybe expand or do a new program, you should start having a conversation with us to see how we can also invest directly into that project, not just through a straight tax credit, but kind of as an equity partner in order to help grow those programs. Next slide. And also the New Jersey Innovation Evergreen Fund, which is an idea that was kicking around for a little bit before I came to EDA. I know Kathleen is more of an expert in it than I am, but we're going to be auctioning off some tax credits to raise funds so we can partner with the private sector to invest in startups here in New Jersey. The firms will be able to take down up to $5 million in 2 rounds of investments. There's a slight bonus depending on if you're a minority-owned firm or a women-owned firm. And we're going to try to target 25% of those investments in New Jersey qualified opportunity zones. So again, those are those census tracts that are generally, low income, high unemployment, more distressed, to try to bring those benefits to those areas. Next slide. And then we made some changes to some familiar programs. So the Angel Investor Tax Credit Program, we increased the annual program cap up to $35 million. The NOL program, we increased the annual cap to 75 and the per company cap to 20. And the Ignite program was a pilot program at EDA that we're codifying in statute. And there's been a direct appropriation to help support some of the rental space there for the collaborative workspaces. Next slide. Actually, it went really quick. I should mention that those new programs, we're kind of in the middle of doing all the rules and regulations for them. So there are not going to be applications available for a little while, but we expect there to be tools available and opportunities for the business community and the community at large to make public comment and kind of give their perspective on some of these. Should keep an eye on our site. I think we're targeting the next several weeks. We're going to have kind of a portal open on our website to take in comment. But we're really targeting maybe this summer to start taking applications officially and start approving projects before the end of the year. So that was it in a nutshell. I know I went really quick. Again, it's a big bill with lots of projects and lots of programs in there, and so it's going to be a lot of work for the EDA in 2021 to stand up these programs. We're really excited about them and really excited about how they can support the state's entire economy, but especially life sciences and technology.
Thank you, George. It is just extraordinary the job that EDA has done, just since COVID started, and then just put this on top of it. Much needed, clearly, but you really have your plates in your hands full. It's just been unbelievable what you all have been able to do. And I don't know, Kathleen is with us, and Kathleen, anything you'd like to add to all of George's presentation and important points?
So thanks, George. Again, as everybody has noted, a lot to cover. We'd ask for people's patience as we try and roll things out. Some of the sweet spots, particularly in the Economic Recovery Act for this audience, includes certainly the Angel Investor Tax Credit increase in the program. 2020 was the first year that the program was fully subscribed at a $25 million cap. And so bringing it up to $35 million, we hope will be impactful to see more dollars flowing into New Jersey. And certainly the net operating loss program, something we've partnered very closely with BioNJ on over the years, to bring the lifetime cap up from $15 million to $20 million, I think is really impactful. There has been no inflation adjustment in that program since launch. So we know the cost of getting a drug to market has significantly increased for many of the folks with us today. And hopefully that lifeline of non-dilutive capital and having a bigger pool of funding will be impactful for many to get things to market and address many of the diseases like COVID.
Terrific. Thank you. Thank you for that added color, Kathleen. So I'm not seeing any questions. for George and Kathleen. I'm sure the questions will come over the many months that you have ahead of you to, I guess, one question, I don't think you covered it. Are you expecting that the NOL program, the changes will be available in this next round, the June 30th deadline?
Yeah, great question, Deb. So the legislation caps are automatically in effect. And so although there are some finer tuning regs that we have to put in place or rules around the program, that increase to $20 million lifetime cap and $75 million overall program cap is for the 2021 year. We expect applications to go live first 2 weeks of May like they traditionally do. But yes, yeah. Effective immediately.
Terrific. Thank you. Thank you. And I guess maybe similar question for the angel investor tax credit. I know that's on a rolling basis. What's the situation there?
Yeah, so angel investor tax credit, again, the changes are in effect for the 2021 allocation. Again, 2020 was the first oversubscribed year. What happens when the program becomes oversubscribed is that the applicants go first in line to the next calendar year. So we already have quite a robust pipeline of projects in-house that we're looking at for 2021, but now we have more capacity.
Terrific. And meanwhile, as an industry that has been, desperately waiting for more venture capital, the Innovation Evergreen Fund idea is novel. It's unique, just like the NOL program in its day, and still to this day, it's the only program like it in the country. So we're very excited about it. Happy to help you in any way that we possibly can. Clearly, this industry will benefit. So again, I'm not, so I am seeing a question here actually, and also an offer. So Rose Rios, our additional good friend from the EDA is with us today. And Rose has offered her assistants her email address and her phone number in the chat to also supplement any questions, answers to any questions that you may have. Thank you, Rose. So one question, how does the Economic Recovery Act take into account the impact of remote work due to the COVID crisis moving forward? Wow, that's an interesting, important question.
Yeah. For the jobs-based program Emerge, so traditionally in ROW, we require that the incented employees have to spend 80% of their time at a qualified business facility. In the new program, we're requiring that the facility accommodate 50% of the employees. This is a question that we're still turning over at EDA. We understand that this is going to kind of reshape the employee's relationship to the workplace. But so many of our programs are still have a geographic component and are targeted to help New Jersey's distressed areas. We expect there to be kind of further guidance on some of that going forward. But we are starting to make some accommodations, like I mentioned, with the 50% requirement in the Emerge program as opposed to 100% of employees.
And if I could just add to that, George. So certainly we both reference the rulemaking process. So that's kind of a government thing, but for folks that don't deal with it on day in and day out, that is where we take the legislation and refine it and kind of hone in on some of these scenarios. And so the opportunity to comment on that and have public engagement is a really important part of this process. So as George said, we're going to have some of that up on our website. And then there is a government process by which we have 60 days where we publish rules and folks can comment. So I would really encourage everybody to be engaged in this process and share your thoughts in it. We need to be as prescriptive as possible so that folks are very clear on what the engagement rules are. And we welcome everyone's input on that.
Okay, terrific. Okay, great. Thank you, George. Thank you, Kathleen, so much. Thank you to Rose in the audience. And we look forward to, learning more, hearing more, and then watching, New Jersey just catapult to the top ahead of our competitor states. So thank you so much, and let us know how we can help.
Thanks, Debbie. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Tim.
Bye.
Terrific. Awesome. So here we go. We are going to now, we have, this is the time of reorganization at BioNJ. It's our annual reorg time. And so in BioNJ tradition, we are going to announce our newest officers. It is with great pleasure that we announce our newly elected officers. As Chair, Will Lewis of INSPED. We'll be hearing from Will in just a moment. As Vice Chair, Dr. Monica Vanook of Pfizer. As Treasurer, Greg Oakes of Vifor Pharma. And Returning Secretary, Michelle Corfin of Gamida Cell. I can say that our nominating committee did a wonderful job here. Excellent choices. Look forward to working with each and every one of you. And thank you for your commitment to BioNJ. And Will, again, we'll hear from you in just a moment. And meanwhile, we have some newly minted board members, Dr. Amadou Diarra of Bristol Myers Squibb, Dr. Emer Leahy of Psychogenics, Dr. Susan Levinson of BioAegis Therapeutics, and Scott McGaffin of Adastra Pharmaceuticals. So congratulations to all of you. Thank you for your commitment to more work with BioNJ, because all of your companies have been members for a very long time, and some of you have already been engaged, and we look forward to working with you in this new and different way. So congrats to you all. So let's see. So, it's really incredible how quickly time passes. And even though, we've been sheltering at home for the last year, in this context, time has surely passed quickly. 2 years ago, we inducted Dr. Chris Shaber as the president and CEO of Cellogenics as BioNJ's new chair. And since that time, Chris has made a very large impact on this organization. His passion for the industry is really second to none. His devotion to supporting so many different things that BioNJ does, in particular mentorship and entrepreneurship. He is just committed to helping today's leaders and fostering tomorrow's. It's just beyond compare. Chris understands the importance of offering STEM education at an early age while ensuring that students of all ages have the opportunity to work with a mentor to help them recognize their strengths while developing their respective skill sets. And he spent many hours of his own personal time to make a difference on that front, whether mentoring individual would-be entrepreneurs or addressing students at Rowan or Rutgers. We could always count on Chris to step up. And it's because of Chris that we established an entrepreneur in training membership category over the past year. It's also why we engaged Jess Fleischman, a College of New Jersey MPH student, as an intern last summer to focus on building our mentoring offering. And it was a constant theme running through Chris's chairmanship. And in fact, I like to refer to Chris as the mentor's mentor, because that's truly what he is. So I would welcome Chris, our outgoing chairman, Dr. Chris Shaber, to say a few words. And Chris, actually, so of course we couldn't be in person for this, and we did send Chris a few surprises ahead of today's program. And I think Chris is going to share them with us on his screen. So.
Well, I do have my BioNJ tie, and so I felt compelled to wear it. Although I have to say, it's been so long since I've worn a tie, I was hoping it was a clip-on. But thank you for this, and thank you for the award. The mentor, I appreciate it very much.
And if I may, so Chris, I know I shared this with you, but just for our audience, so we had it made specially for Chris in the BioNJ colors, and the intertwined segments of the double helix represent how Chris is connected with so many as a mentor and a guide. And Chris, thank you for bringing your gifts along with you today. And the inscription says, to Dr. Chris Shaber, BioNJ chairman over the past 2 years, the mentor's mentor. And Chris, it's a token of our huge appreciation for your generosity of time, talent, and of course, membership. And, it is the tradition that when the chairperson leaves, if they are a gentleman, they get the much coveted BioNJ tie. And when we have a chairwoman, that person will get a lovely BioNJ scarf. So Chris, it's been an honor and a pleasure, and would love to hear some words from you, please.
Debbie, thank you for those kind words. It's truly been an honor and a privilege to chair BioNJ's board and to work with such a gifted team and dedicated board of trustees. Debbie, your commitment, energy, enthusiasm, and passion for the industry, for New Jersey, and for patients is unstoppable. I would like to thank you for being such a terrific partner over the last 2 years. You know, it's hard to imagine just how much has changed since BioNJ's last annual dinner meeting and innovation celebration, which took place a year ago this week, our last in-person event. And although, as Debbie mentioned, today's program is not meant to replace our traditional annual meeting, it's wonderful to have this opportunity to bring our board and members together. With the onset of COVID in early 2020, the world as we knew it had changed, leaving many of us apprehensive and filled with uncertainty. But it was our industry, the life sciences industry, that provided the world with hope. This industry came together across the globe, working nonstop to develop testing, therapies, and vaccines to combat the virus. We saw New Jersey stepped up in a big way, with more than 70 organizations working one or more COVID programs. It's truly tremendous. And just as the industry rose to the challenge, so did BioNJ. From developing the first COVID-19 toolbox to immediately rolling out the signature Business Unusual in the Age of COVID-19 webinar series, while serving on the governor and assembly speakers' economic recovery advisory councils, the BioNJ team pivoted to ensure that our members had the tools and resources we needed to navigate this difficult time. As for many of us, it's been an extremely busy time for BioNJ, expanding on our public policy role in both Trenton and Washington, growing our relationships with the patient and advocacy community, advancing our value of medical innovation campaign, increasing our work to foster entrepreneurship in New Jersey. Whether mentoring high school or college students, sitting on various entrepreneur advisory councils, creating an entrepreneur and training membership category, or providing biotech startups with guidance and resources to assist with identifying talent, funding, and partnerships, BioNJ is a proud supporter of that growth in New Jersey and building upon that robust ecosystem. You have all helped us with these accomplishments. We thank you for your continued support and hope that you see your commitment to BioNJ as more than just a membership, but rather the opportunity to be part of a community. Together, we'll continue to make a difference. And I can't think of a better champion to lead the way than our incoming chairman, a proven and admired industry leader and successful entrepreneur who brought his company from startup to a global leader in a rare disease space from their headquarters right here in New Jersey. Please join me in welcoming BioNJ's incoming chairman, someone I'm privileged to call a friend as well as a colleague, Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of Insmed, Will Lewis. Will?
Thank you, Chris. And probably as a harbinger of things to come, I'm going to go off script here a little bit and make everybody nervous. Because the first thing I want to call out is Chris's leadership. I think he has done extraordinary work during his time as chair of this board. And he was a leader before he came to BioNJ. He's had 30 years in this industry. And as we've heard from Debbie and others, at a very personal level, he's reached out and he's changed individuals and mentored them into our industry, really creating a legacy and a next generation that I think that he should be proud of. And certainly it's something that we in the board admire. So thank you, Chris, for what you've done. I'd also like to pick up on some themes you said. You know, it's funny, I think back about when I was a kid in history class, and we would sit there and study these monumental events like World War I and II. And I remember sitting in class and wondering what it must have been like to live through that era and what I might have done had I lived in that era. And it's a time of exaggerated statements right now, but it shouldn't be lost on any of us that we are living in one of those eras. This COVID-19 pandemic and the change that we saw over the last year, it's one of the reasons I find Chris and Debbie so inspiring as leaders, because we've seen at an international level, at the highest orders of institutions, failures of leadership. So the distinction to see success now, I think, is all the more remarkable. And this is one of those times where we should all stop for a second and ask, what are we going to look back and say we did during the COVID-19 pandemic? This isn't a statement to BioNJ members. This is a statement to our families, to people that are important to us. When they say, what were you doing in that history class when that question comes? What did you do during the COVID-19 pandemic? Everyone who's a member of BioNJ can hold their head high and say, we worked in the industry that made it go away. And we contributed. There are people on this call who have had their hand directly involved in the creation of the medicine that is going to make this disease a thing of the past. And that is an extraordinary responsibility and an extraordinary point for inspiration. But it's more than that. It's more than just the fact that we work in this industry. It's what the last 4 years have shown us is the importance of being committed to your community, beyond just your work, beyond just your family, how we all interact and relate to one another. And I have to say, if there is a better nexus for pulling us all together and finding a way to channel our contribution professionally in a way that benefits our community, it's hard to identify or name outside of BioNJ. Debbie and the team at BioNJ have earned the right to have our support now and for the future. You don't know what people are capable of until they show up in the moment of adversity, and they have proven that they will work harder at these times of adversity. And it's our responsibility, I believe, and why I am so enthused about coming on to this position. We need to take this forward in this year more than any other in our history. This is the year where we will put COVID-19 in the dustbin of history. And we are the ones that are going to do it. And it is time for us to step up in every way we can. Outreach to the community, outreach to one another, and to invite others to join in this effort. If not this circumstance of a global pandemic, then when and how are BioNJ going to be more impactful? If we aren't stepping up now, how can we ask those outside of industry who find this to be a completely Byzantine world, incomprehensible? How can we ask them to understand what it is that we do and how we contribute? These things that I'm speaking of are not done for anyone in a leadership position. They're done because this is our personal legacy. This is our reputation as an industry, and a byproduct of all of our efforts right now could be the very rebranding of the entire industry itself. COVID-19 and what we did at this moment in history. And it extends beyond just this disease to all diseases. And indeed, this is the DNA of what BioNJ is all about. We are about finding solutions to diseases that afflict humankind around the world. And this is now under the spotlight. Our extraordinary accomplishments to date, I think, are just the beginning. And I think this is back to the concept of community, why we go beyond disease. We look at things, and one of the things I'm going to be championing, certainly in my time, that are impactful in the community and that allow us to do this better. Things like diversity, equity, and inclusion. DEI is going to be something I am going to be very vocal about. Why? Because we're a mission-oriented industry. We sacrifice nothing. Excellence has to come first. And that gives us the perfect backbone and the early lead among all industries to teach how this can be done in the best way possible. In the end, we do all of this. We fight for COVID-19. We fight for diseases people have never heard of, and we make these accomplishments because it's all about the patients. And as Debbie and BioNJ remind us all the time, patients can't wait. So I thank you for the opportunity to be a part of this community in a more evident way, but I am coming on the heels of exceptional leadership, and I've been handed a baton at a time when there is incredible momentum and incredible progress, as I'm sure you've all seen just from this short interaction today. And so with that, I'll turn it back over to Debbie.
Wow, Will. And I can attest to the fact that that was not in his script. Well, thank you so much. That was so moving and so inspirational. And we are so grateful that you stepped up as our chair. And I very much look forward to working with you over the next 2 years, as I know our team does as well. Thank you. So with that, we did promise you some networking time. Just a reminder, if you came in late, don't worry, we have this recorded. We will get it out to the community, so you won't have to miss a moment of any of the important things that were said up front. And it is now time to network. So we're going to be divided into 4 breakout rooms. Each room's discussion will be led by our board members. We ask that you turn on your webcam so that everyone within your room can see you. We hope that you take advantage of this opportunity to engage with your industry colleagues. We will give you a 2-minute warning to finish up your discussions before bringing each group back here for closing remarks, and that will all happen automatically. So here we go, and have a good discussion. We'll see you back here in a few minutes. So I think we are probably all back, and welcome back. I hope that you all enjoyed the networking session. Hopefully it worked out as well in all of your respective rooms as it did in ours. We had 5 rooms, and so we were thrilled to be able to do that. It's been terrific to see all of you today. Even though we're not in person, Saturday will be literally a year since our annual meeting last year when we did the last in-person event. I would invite you, building on Will's impassioned speech, I would invite you to continue to take advantage of the many benefits of BioNJ membership, from whether it's networking, programming, public policy, our purchasing consortium, our talent services, our career portal. We are truly here to help you support your goals and your needs, and really help you to help patients, whether you are, in a biopharmaceutical company, a big pharma company, or an insurance broker. You are all contributing to helping our members help patients. And so I would invite you also to consider joining us in our Value of Medical Innovation campaign. You can be part of our army that sends important messages regarding the value that this industry is delivering in each and every day to patients' lives and the quality of lives. And together we can ensure that patients have the access to the right medicines at the right time. I will, Will mentioned he's very passionate about, as we all are, right? And we should be, about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And at Will's urging, we are hosting a inaugural Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Conference on March 24th and 25th. We have an extraordinary conference committee, and it's shaping up to be a really special event. And I do hope that many of you will join us for what will be our chair's signature initiative. Please visit bionj.org for additional information on this and other upcoming programs. And I would thank you once again to our sponsors, our presenters, Chris, Will, our beloved board, our amazing team. Thank you for all that you do each and every day on behalf of our industry and ultimately for patients. We wish everyone the very best of health. Stay safe, stay well. We need you doing what you're doing out there. And thank you again.